Hey everyone, David Herbst here with Americans for Prosperity Montana. I'm here with Senator Dave Howard to talk a little bit about the state budget and Medicaid expansion, just getting some information for you and giving you an opportunity to engage in the legislature this year. Senator Howard, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so what's your background? Where are you from? Why'd you run for the legislature?
Well, I was an FBI agent for years, lived all over the country, primarily in Chicago, worked in political corruption. And then we moved out to California, where I took a job as the chief of law enforcement with the Bureau of Land Management.
Wow.
And then I went with PG&E. I was their supervisor over all their internal investigations. Then I went out on my own, okay?
Wow.
Had my own investigative firm. And for about the last 20 years, I actually stopped about 5 years ago, but I've been doing consulting in violence in the workplace.
Wow, okay. And so, and you were a U.S. Army veteran, correct?
Yes, I was, during the Vietnam conflict.
Oh, thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so what is Medicaid expansion? What's the program? And how's it different than regular Medicaid?
Medicaid was actually invented for people that are really in a hardship situation. I mean, we get people before my committee, I'm chairman of the Public Health and Senate, you know, that are in wheelchairs. They have really traumatic things happen. They can't work really, they really need help. And that program does a pretty good job in Montana. We help a lot of people, which we should. But Medicaid expansion is totally different. When you hear the word expansion, that's for people that are totally healthy, okay? And with a income of less than approximately $17,000 a year if they're single. The problem is, in Montana right now, 54% of 100,000 of them, that's 54,000, pay zero income tax and they have no dependents. Okay? That program costs Montana about $130 million every 2 years.
Wow.
And we are accepting 1.4 total dollars from the federal government, which they made a 9-to-1 match. Okay? The problem with that is that we, by accepting Medicaid expansion and not doing free market alternatives, are actually helping the federal government go about $1.3 billion every 2 years farther into debt. Okay?
Yeah. So just to get a sense of scale for what this means in the Montana budget, what's the total budget on like an annual or biannual budget?
It's between 12 and 13 billion dollars, of which we get about 6 billion, almost half of it, from the federal government.
So most of it's funded by the feds already.
That's right.
Medicaid expansion's mostly paid by the feds, about 9-to-1. But this adds an additional burden on Montana state budget.
Right.
To what tune again?
Well, $130 million every 2 years.
Every 2 years.
We want infrastructure. We want to be able to support our schools. We have all kinds of problems. Matter of fact, what most people don't know, we don't really have a balanced budget. We have $2 billion worth of debt that has no funding source. None at all.
What is that debt? Where does it come from?
It's mostly retirement, of which we put about 130 million every 2 in it. But it's slowly increasing all the time. When you look at our total retirement budget, it's like 4.7 billion.
Wow, so that's a third of the total state budget?
That's right. You'd think if we come out with like $7 billion, half of it is in debt. I mean, my goodness, who does that? I mean, I can see somebody right now, if we use the state thing, if you really are getting in dire straits, you just go out and buy a new car.
So she's kind of breaking it back down, because that's a lot of numbers, there's a lot of details, so we'll try to back it up a little bit. So
it's actually frightening.
Yeah, so how does the government pay for Medicaid expansion? Like, where does the money come from?
You, the taxpayer.
Okay, so it comes out of our income taxes that they're deducted out of our paycheck.
That's right. We have to understand, a lot of people don't realize this. The government has no money. None. Everybody gets is from us who pay taxes.
That's right.
And from businesses and corporations and everything that it taxes. Okay?
That's right. So, and a lot of those taxes in Montana's case, because of the 9-to-1 match, a lot of those taxes are coming from out of state, right?
Yes.
Oftentimes the Medicaid expansion proponents are saying, well, this is free for us, this is cheap for us, because 9 out of every $10 is coming from Texas and New York and California. That doesn't make the program legitimate though, right? Like, doesn't that make the program us taking from
a good analogy is that, let's say that a couple's trying to get ahead, and grandma's giving them money every month. Okay? Now here this money comes every month, but they don't know it. But grandma's actually borrowing it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, grandma's taking out paychecks or
Okay.
taking out credit cards.
All right, now how responsible is that couple when they find that out that they keep taking money from grandma? It's being irresponsible.
That's right.
And that's what we're doing, a big deal. We somehow rationalize it in our heads that this is okay. This is not okay.
That's right. The federal government's in debt, $1.3 trillion, right?
No,
on an annual basis.
21 trillion.
21 trillion.
Yeah,
Yeah, 20 trillion.
That's right,
yeah.
every year.
Yeah.
Okay, now you realize that if you pay off $1 a second for $1 trillion, it'll only take 33,000 years to pay it off.
So that's a little bit of money, no
Yeah,
problem.
right.
So who is getting the benefit of Medicaid expansion as opposed to traditional Medicaid? So you said traditional Medicaid was people in wheelchairs, disabled, elderly folks, and while Medicaid expansion is mostly, who do those people look like?
They're either people are not working or they have an excuse not to work. Okay, what the trouble is we're affording medical care for people that refuse to work. Okay, I know a couple. The fellow works very hard. He makes about $60,000 a year. He wants to have his wife home with their 2 children. Their medical, if they can afford it, is over $20,000 a year. He can't afford health care. But guess what? His taxes are paying for somebody that doesn't work. That is tyranny.
Yeah, that's right. That's just wrong because it's redistributive in its nature, right?
That's right.
And especially if those folks, like, I think people understand if those folks are disabled and they can't work.
That's right.
But when they're able-bodied, when they're physically able to,
That's right.
or even psychologically able to, if they're psychologically not able to work, we get that.
That's right.
But when they're able to, and they're not for whatever reason, we should be careful not to subsidize that kind of behavior because there's a cost, and we don't
That's right.
look at that cost in government.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah. One other thing you should understand is under Governor Bullock, they have made the rules so broad, so easy for Medicaid that we have the highest cost per capita person on Medicaid expansion in the United States.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, we're really shoving it to them.
So of course, probably the best thing is just not to have Medicaid expansion. Just have regular Medicaid, make sure we're servicing those people right, because we don't want to take those dollars from them. But given that, what are some ways that the program can be improved on the margin, or improved to say, for the folks that are in that?
There's vast solutions, but the thing is we have to think free market. Okay, just to give you an idea, my daughter came up here to Montana in 2010. She was 25 years old. She created a health savings account, was able to get a catastrophic health care program for $1 million, and it cost her $75 a month. Okay, that's free market. Now, since the Unaffordable No Care Act, I call it, okay, because it is unaffordable for anybody that is productive, you can't even have a catastrophic health care program. Okay, now think about this. They've taken the ability for us to control our health care completely away from us, and they've given it to government. Okay, because now they believe government can think better than the normal citizen, and we know. They can't even run the post office.
That's right. So I think at least a part of this is we can see that there are people who aren't working who are getting this benefit, and obviously taxing people who are working and have to pay for that benefit. Now, one of the things of being batted around is a lot of work requirements. Do you think that solves the problem, or does it only partially solve the problem? Like, to what degree is that the solution?
No, the thing is this. All of these types of requirements that they're trying to put on have to get okayed by the federal government. Okay, we have a governor that doesn't want to do it. Plus, he has absolute rulemaking authority. And under DPHSS in Montana, he can almost create any rule he wants. So I can tell you that if we think we're going to put some sideboards on it, we're delusional, because we tried last time, okay, when we passed it. What happened? He went around every one of them. Okay?
Yeah,
so
and he has an incentive to do so, right?
Well, that's right.
This is his legacy. This is what he wants to do. I mean, he wants a pure Medicaid expansion that doesn't have these sideboards. So putting it on as governor in Montana, we have such an unbalance between the executive and the legislature that he can just go right on.
Exactly right. We're only here 4 months out of every 2 years. He does what he wants after we leave.
So what's your read on, first off, what's the best outcome for this program right now in your mind?
The best outcome for this program, I believe, is that we stop it totally, and that we start initiating a million different kind of programs. Like, for instance, healthcare transparency. I mean, how come you can go to a doctor that does, like your eyes, or you have what is it called?
LASIK surgery.
LASIK surgery, that type of stuff. And he knows exactly what it costs. But if you go get a hernia fix, they have no idea. All right. The problem is, again, the federal government. But we can fix it in Montana. We can create a process where our insurance companies pay by this thing, this way. I mean, why couldn't we pay doctors by the hour? Why are they so special that the modality books that they use, they brought them in last session, okay? They're this tall.
Wow.
Okay? And they told us it takes 6 months for someone to learn how to bill. I mean,
just a bill.
Just a bill.
Wow.
Okay?
Wow. Okay.
And now think about that. And just think about what is happening. That's why you get paid, you get charged $20 for an aspirin.
Yeah. So where do you see the read in the legislature right now? What's the temperature? How do people in your committee, and how are people generally on the floor looking at Medicaid expansion?
Well, there are those in the legislature that want to have, they call themselves solution Republicans. The problem is that I don't know if they even know, but the solution is a socialist solution. Okay? Now, we have to be very careful, because I don't think any of us from the Republican side can go out to the people and say, hey, we created socialist solutions to be able to solve this problem. I mean, my goodness, that's the last thing we want to do. I mean, even our president last night said, we're not a socialist country, we're not going down that route. But by enabling a socialist program, what are we doing? Okay? So there are those that are a little confused about it. There are those that are actually, they're well-meaning, they're trying to help. And I encourage everyone that's listening to call your legislature and find out where he stands and support him in voting no.
That's right. So are you hearing from your constituents on this issue? Is anything on the ground happening, or is it pretty quiet out there?
Well, it's pretty quiet, but before I came here, I had several meetings with people. I asked them about Medicaid expansion, and this is the key. We don't realize up here how intelligent the citizens are. I mean, here's a farmer that had nothing to do with medical or nothing to do with politics, asked me this question: how can Republicans support a socialist program? Okay, he knows the free market. He knows where we do. He knows what our literally our foundation in America is. It's called liberty and freedom.
Yeah. Interview, 1 minute, almost done. So yeah, that's wonderful, and I think there's so much more that can be done. Legislators respond to their constituents talking to them. And that's one thing that we do at AFP a lot is connect people with their legislators. So if you go to afpmontana.com, you can go there to get involved by signing our petition and filling out emails to your legislators. And of course, we do a lot of work, phone banking, calling everyday citizens, educating them on the issues, and then connecting them directly to the phone lines of our legislators. So go to afpmontana.com, subscribe to this, and share this with your friends so that we can drive more engagement from the citizens about this program, especially with the cost. This is coming out of your income tax, folks. Engage, get prepared to hold your legislators accountable and make sure they know where you're at on these issues. We'll have a link attached to this video and podcast notes that you can go to join us in opposing Medicaid expansion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.